Welcome to the Good Life. Thank you for stopping by. I'm Patrick Harney. And as always, make sure to check this out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. And if you're listening to this, currently checking it out on one of those, you can also watch this on YouTube. Today, I have a friend with me. His name is Gillan Williams. He's a producer from across the pond over in England. And we're currently co-producing on a film that, we really can't talk much about, but he has a lot of other cool things going on, and I'm excited to get him on here. So let's jump in, shall we? And we're going. All right, Gillan Williams.
How you doing?
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me on, man.
Of course, man. I appreciate you being here. So you are a producer extraordinaire. My question for you is, how did you get into producing?
Well, I first started working in media when I was 16. So I joined the National Youth Theatre Wales and was a technician on there. And I grew up in Wales, and that made it difficult to get into the film industry. I made a lot of attempts, but there's just no industry there, not really. I mean, they shoot some scenes from Doctor Who there. That's about it, really. And that's not really my bag. So, I made some really dreadful indie little shorts and films with some friends, and it just seemed a fantasy to get it further. I even went to film school there, and the connections with the industry weren't what I hoped they would be. I did learn a lot of good stuff, but I ended up moving into publishing and worked as assistant publisher and sort of, doing magazines. Then 2008 happened, and the bottom of that just fell out. I mean, just killed the publishing industry. Yeah. And so I pivoted and went into marketing and did that for a while. This is kind of like a race through my sort of career. And then, so ended up as a brand manager for a finance tech company in the city of London. So we were providing technology for investor risk profiling for firms like Deloitte and Rothschilds and Barclays and HSBC and some of the biggest investment firms in the world. So all of that attempt to get into the film industry and failing, and yet going into other industries, kind of gave me, like, I've got the PR experience, I've got the marketing experience, I've got the finance background. I've run teams since then. I've set up projects. I used to run a thing called Rogue Mag, which was like an online action sports brand. So all of that gave me the relevant experience for producing. And I moved to this area in England, and there's a guy called Richard Oakes, who's one of the directors of Hosts, and we were old friends. And we decided to make Hosts together, and for me to produce, and that's how I got into it, really. And I wanted to move out the family out of Wales to get more opportunity. I mean, Wales is a beautiful country, but if you want to get into this type of industry, you got to move. Yeah. And so we did, and since then it's also taken off, and that is kind of the whistle-stop tour of how I got into producing.
Yeah. Well, so Hosts, because you mentioned Hosts, so that is a film that you just produced that just came out during really the COVID. I mean, everything. I mean, it came out during then. So talk about what that process was of, like, when you filmed it compared to, did things have to delay because of COVID, and also what was the response and the reaction that you got when it came out?
So we were so lucky, and COVID almost played into our hands, and we genuinely felt a little bit guilty about it because so many were suffering and really suffering. I mean, people were losing lives. That's no joke. But we'd wrapped last February, and we were already well into post-production. So when lockdown happened, we already had the edit was 80% there. And Richard Oakes and Adam Leader, the directors, they also own Dark Fiber Media. They do music videos and other stuff. So we were doing the edit ourselves. They were doing the edit. So they were able to carry on remotely doing that. We weren't relying on a post house. So it didn't really slow us down. And when we came to, well, we were ready to take it to market, the disadvantage we had is the festivals, for the most part, were cancelled. We did get into Fright Fest, and some of the boys went down to Sitges. I couldn't make it. We just had a kid, and it was too risky for me. But prior to those festivals, we'd sold to MPI Media, so to be distributed by Dark Sky in the US. And the way that COVID played into our hands was there were so many productions that had to shut down. But we were sort of just over that critical point where we could complete, and there was this demand for product. Yeah. And so there we were. And so we got a good MG, covered the cost of the film, so that was great. So from the off, the investors are paid back. I mean, for a first film, that's pretty rare. That is. Yeah, so we were really lucky in that sense, and then it was distributed in North America and came out in Halloween. And out in the UK this year, and it's Germany, Australia, Japan has got releases for. So we managed to get worldwide distribution for micro budget first horror. So we're pretty pleased with that.
Dude, it is a great film. You sent it to me to specifically get my reaction. You were getting people's reactions to the dinner scene. Yeah. And for those of you who have not seen Hosts yet, it is a great film, and I really recommend it. It's beautifully shot. But that dinner scene, was intense. So good, but intense. So definitely go watch it. For all of you who are listening and watching, definitely go watch it.
Watch it with the family.
Make sure the kids are around.
Your grandparents will love it.
Yeah, dude. So
it's just a feel-good Christmas movie,
Yeah, it's a comedy, right?
Yeah.
But so you also you got into a little bit when we were talking about COVID and everything. So there's and correct me if I'm wrong, there's an organization that you started or you got involved with.
So we started it. So one of the other things I'm doing is producing a TV show with a guy called James Keenan, and also a business partner. And it's more, well, really it's down to him for starting it. His kid was going to this school, and James was there picking up some schoolwork for him. And the support officer, I think that's what you call her, she was upset in the foyer. And James tried to get out of her, like, why? What's going wrong? And she was telling him that there's these families that just don't have enough to eat, despite there supposedly being, the organisations in place to help them. The teachers were having to group money together and pay for shopping for these people. And we were shocked by it, and it wasn't something that we weren't looking for or ever intended to get into, really. Was a supporter of charity, of course, but certainly at this stage it wasn't something that we were considering. But it's one of those cases where when you find out about something like this, right, and then you've got a choice. Like, you're either going to walk away with the knowledge of what's going on, or you're going to do something about it. And James and I felt that we would be able to do something about it. So we started essentially a food bank and some of the food banks in the area. I mean, I don't like to slate on people, but how can I say this? They had criteria in place so that people didn't depend on food banks. Now, normally in normal circumstance, that I agree with that, because you don't want to sort of encourage poverty by supporting people in poverty like that. You want to help them out of it. So for the most part, I agree with the policies, but these are not ordinary times. Yeah. So these policies just weren't going to work. And they weren't working for these people. So we had a no criteria, and we still have a no criteria policy, where if you feel that you need support, just come and get some food. because what we found was, and a lot of the people that come to the food bank, some of them, how can I say, they fit what you would expect somebody to come to a food bank to, and there's a sort of a demographic, you kind of expect that. But there's people who turn up in Mercedes, there's people who turn up in fancy cars because, through no fault of their own, two working parents, it's in South Runnymede is in Surrey. And for those who don't know, it's a wealthy part of a wealthy county just outside London. In fact, Runnymede is one of the wealthiest areas in the country. And it's expensive to live there. And so you've got two working parents, both lose their jobs. They can't afford to live. And they might have these cars on the drive, but they can't get rid of them quickly. There's no value in selling cars at the moment. So they're ashamed, but they sort of don't meet a lot of criteria for some support. So our policy is, look, we don't ask questions about like that. And whilst COVID's going on in that area, if you need to come down because you need food, you can come down and get some food. So we're open twice a week. And I can't remember the exact figure, but yeah, I don't know where we're at now, but a couple of weeks ago we figured it's about 12,000 meals that we've distributed.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that's amazing. And so just so everybody knows, it's called the South Runnymede COVID Support.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
So, and one thing that you had talked with me about before was how you were, because we've talked about this in some of our other chats before, and you were so surprised that nobody in the local government or anything was helping these people, because it almost seemed like it was like they didn't want any bad press. That's
the impression we had, and we ended up basically in a battle with with the council. There was a lot of pressure to shut us down, and thankfully, the work that James and I are in isn't affected by their circle of influence, should we say? So, excuse my language, people are like, well, fuck you. We're not shutting down. We don't need your permission to run. And the fact that you're trying to shut us down is making us more determined. And it was an uphill battle. There was a lot of pressure against us, which we've managed to turn around now. And I think that they've just accepted that we're here and for however long we're going to be there. But yeah, initially we were, and it was unfortunate because when we set up, one of the first things I did was contact the council and say, look, this is what we're doing. We're not a food business, but I'm going to register as a food business so that we're going to be, we're going to adhere to your standards because we want to make sure that we're doing this right. And I expected there to be a more positive response. I think that what it was is somebody somewhere was reporting that we've got a handle on this and this problem is being managed. And I think by us popping up and being like, well, holy hell, like there's all these people and we're giving food out and a lot of people are turning up, that puts some noses out of joint because, it sort of shone a light on the fact that there was a need for this. And despite it being a wealthy area, this was a problem. And I think it made some people not look good. Frankly, I don't give a shit about that. It's, whatever.
You're there to help people.
Yeah, we just want people to eat, man, and it shouldn't be a big ask, right?
Yeah. So how do you, because I'm always curious, where do these meals come from? Because it's not like you're at home cooking up 12,000 meals and packaging them up and sending them off. I would imagine you're getting businesses involved, correct? So what was that process like, and what was the overall response? I mean, was everybody pretty much like, yeah, we're on board, or was it tough because these businesses were also struggling because a lot of them were shut down as well? How did that work?
We were really surprised actually that the response from the businesses was really good. So we've got there's a Chinese company, there's a Chinese takeaway that's opposite the school. They provide a lot of meals. There's an organisation called Surplus to Supper, and they're based near London, and they they use chefs from restaurants and excess food from businesses that's going to waste because of COVID, and they operated before the pandemic, but basically they do that, and so they have a couple of Michelin star chefs are cooking massive batches of food, and they arrive to us on a van frozen, and they all go out that day. So on 2 days of the week, we get 400 meals, so on Wednesday and Friday. And they all go out, and then we got food from the Chinese. We got loaves of bread that come from the bakery, what they call Wildflower Bakeries, and then we have food. Then, so we've got ambient food. So we do get some fresh food, and that has to go out on the day because we don't want to store food. But then, your typical sort of base supplies, like your pastas and your tins of whatever. Then we get that. So we estimate, because from what's sent out, there's about 1,000 meals a week sent out. So we've been operating for 12 weeks now, 13 weeks.
That's amazing. Really, that's amazing. And I think that's very, very good of what you guys are doing. And yeah, man, I applaud you for sure. Now, what's the overall...
I will actually add as well. So the local, so we're very active on social in that area. And so there's local supermarkets and shops. So Co-op now, the British supermarket chain, they're supporting us. Waitrose is like a sort of another supermarket chain that they're supporting us. And they're giving us financial donations. And then there's this company called Banquet, which are awesome. So they order food at wholesale price. So we put an order in, and they buy it at wholesale price and then deliver it to us, and then we can ship that out. So we just started working with them as well. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So what's the overall goal then? Like, so if in a perfect world, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but ideally, is it safe to say that you want to get to the point where you guys don't have to operate anymore?
Yeah, that's the goal. It's to not operate. Yeah. I mean, it's like the opposite of a business. Right. Yeah. Our goal is to cease operation. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're monitoring the situation. Numbers are starting to come down, which is good, because that means the demand is less. So I imagine by the end of the summer into autumn, we should be seeing numbers dwindle. Furlough, I don't know if you got furlough in the US, but here, like the government are like paying you to, paying businesses to pay people to stay at home. Yeah. That finishes. So we are waiting until then. That might see an influx where you got a lot of new unemployment, and when people go onto unemployment benefits, there's like a 6-week waiting period before your money starts coming in. So expecting demand then. Yeah. And then we'll see, but towards the end of the year, just how it's going. And then what we don't want to do is be in a position where we are then supporting people to stay in poverty. Yeah. Because that's, and it is, and it's, and you try not to be patronizing to people, but at the same time, you don't want to be part of the problem. Yeah. So what we want to do is, as the COVID situation starts to resolve itself, we'll assess what's going on and whether we're part of the problem. And at that stage, we'll start phasing out, introducing people to organizations who can help them with their finances, and some governmental bodies. So that's the goal, really. Ideally, by next year, we hope to not be operating.
Well, that was going to be my next point too, was, because what you, like you said, I guess you don't really want to get to the point where, like, you're helping people because of COVID.
Yeah.
Once everything dies down, I could imagine it would be tough, because you don't want to turn people away, but at the same time, if they're not being affected really by COVID anymore, then it's kind of going against the whole purpose of the organization. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. And there are other organizations who are well established, at the Trussell Trust. They got food banks, and others. There's the Independent Food Network. Their food banks are set up to assist people with more than just food poverty. Mm-hmm. So we would prefer people to start moving towards them.
Yeah.
So that'd be.
So say like 5 years ago, could you have ever, if somebody told you that you would be like co-running an organization to help feed people all across, like, I mean, like thousands and thousands of meals going out. Like, could you believe that?
Well, yeah, because this is part of my plan.
Oh, well,
So,
aren't you a saint? Jeez.
okay,
No,
so
I'm kidding.
I've got, but I've got like lofty ambitions. But I don't want to be a greedy. I don't be greedy about it, right? So I mean, for a long time I've had this goal of having a C-130 Hercules and a huge container ship, well, not container, but a big ship, and basically running a small logistics company that whenever there's a natural disaster, I could say, right, well, we got these routes to finish, but then we're there and we can deliver, crate containers, we can deliver whatever you need. That's basically awesome. So that's the goal. And part of it's because I want my own C-130, right?
Yeah.
But like, you've got to have a good reason to have one. Like, I don't want to be a guy who's just like, well, I'm flying this around. I got no need for this huge aircraft. So that's the ultimate goal. And I kind of see this as, a sort of stepping point of moving in that direction, learning how this all works. My uncle actually helps run Feed the Hungry. So that's a sort of charity. And they feed. I might be millions now, all around the world. So yeah, and it's so I take a lot of inspiration from him and advice from him. But yeah, so he does, like, they get the food to people, but I'm quite interested in having logistic support for organizations.
Gotcha. Yeah, dude, that's amazing, man. Well, that's good, and that's cool that that's a passion of yours and a focus of yours, because I think I don't think people think about that sort of thing much. Because people get so dialed into just what they're doing, what their future for themselves and their immediate family, and that's it. And then serving others kind of comes, oh, if I have time or if I have the money. But putting yourself in a position where you're like, no, I don't care. I'm gonna figure it out, make it work, so that way I can help these people.
Well, I mean, I want to get wealthy, right? That's, I do. I want to be a wealthy man, as do most people. But our family can live off less than millions, right? Yeah. So I figured you gotta have a goal, so that it's not just about greed, that you can have something that's beyond yourself. And it's motivation, because I want to be wealthy, not because I just want to have money. I want to have opportunity to do things. And I want as few restrictions as possible. And that means having wealth. And I think that by having a goal like that, a lofty goal, gives you the motivation. Yeah. Because you can get, I think, you earn, several thousand per year. Let's call it 60K per year, 80. You can live fairly comfortably. And I feel like if I want to earn more than that, give myself a motivation. So that's sort of what that is. Yeah. As well as just wanting to help,
Well, and that's the thing too, is it sets a great example for your kids, and it sets something up that you could potentially pass on to your kids. If they're able to see the level of dedication to servicing others, then from you, then they go, okay, well, Dad always did this, and I like Dad. he's a good person. So maybe this is something I could do, because I can see how many people he's helping. And that type of stuff is infectious, man. And it's dude, I think that's amazing. And I think and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here, was because it's a very inspirational thing that you're doing. And it may not seem like a lot to you, but it really is. I mean, you're helping feed people, that's amazing. And so I applaud you. One of the other things that I know about you is, and I saw you had posted about this a little while ago, your first batch of mead.
Yeah.
which for those of you who don't know what mead is, I mean, it's alcohol, and correct me if I'm, isn't it like fermented with like honey? And
That's it. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So what's that? How is that different from like just making your own beer, or is it really any different?
It's easier, for a start. And the reason I started making mead was when we moved into this house, we've got a trellis with a grapevine, and I wanted to make some white wine with these grapes. So I tried to do that. Didn't know what I was doing. I was making it up as I went along. And one night I'm in bed and I hear a gunshot from the garage. And it wasn't a gunshot, it was this plastic bottle that I was fermenting that the stuff was in, and it blew up.
Oh
The
yeah.
pressure inside. so and all these, I've realized all these bottles were like, like rigid and about to explode, and I didn't know what I was doing, and so I just got some balloons and just put pinprick holes in them and then put them over the top, and turns out that's how you make some airlocks. So it's sort of like letting the gas out, and then basically because I'd sealed these things as the wine hadn't finished fermenting, and I'd sealed it in, I basically carbonated it. I didn't know, but yeah. So I did that, and then so basically I made like sparkling wine, and it tasted pretty good. So that's bottled, and I got that aging. And then unfortunately the vine wasn't doing so well, but I kind of wanted to still make some alcohol, and so mead is what I did. And yeah, I mean it's dead easy. You basically just you melt honey into warm water, you sterilize everything. The first batch was just honey and water. It tastes quite nice. I got one here. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that label on it.
The label and everything.
That's my marketing background coming in there.
Yeah.
And then I've got another batch now, which has got some strawberries in it. So apparently that's a thing. I'm yet to taste that. It could taste really bad. This one's pretty good. It's about 20% proof as well. So like one bottle's enough. So.
Yeah, that'll light you up if you have enough, for sure.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the producing side again, because so we met through and I hope one day we can meet in person, because
yeah,
I feel like I've known you for so long now, and I don't even, I've never even met you in person, but we met through Jeff Cap, who he got us in touch about you coming on to help produce Locker 42.
Yep.
And it's funny because I remember we had initially brought you on. It's basically kind of like a contracted producer to help us get funds, and that's basically it. But then as time had gone on, like, you just started doing more and more and more, and really showing, like, you were showing us, and me especially, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, this guy is just running circles around us right now, and then over some time, kind of roles had changed, and now you're like one of our lead producers and are as absolutely killing it. And so I guess my question to you, and we can't really talk much about Locker 42 itself, but did you envision yourself being as involved with this project when you first started? As you are.
I was hoping I could be there during production, because I love being on set.
Yeah.
And I like to be one of those hands-on producers, that's not just, except producing from a distance. So I was kind of hoping I could do that. And I remember we spoke about that, and, maybe I could do like a production management role.
Yeah.
And it sort of organically grew from there, I think. But initially I was in it to just help raise money. But as things went on, I think I just sort of fell in love with the project more and more, and there were things to do, so I thought, well, I could do that, so I did it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is I know we've talked before, but it's, for me, it's nice to be able to work with someone who has just as much passion for filmmaking as I do, or at least as I feel that I do, because I mean, there's been times where I've worked on projects where, you can tell that it's just a hobby for everybody that's there. And for myself, I'm like, no, like this is my career. Like I take this very seriously. And when I see others that don't, it gets tough, right? Um, and I remember speaking with you because originally Locker 42 was just going to be a small like regional film. And I remember speaking with everybody and you in particular and saying like this story is way too good to just go to a few film festivals and then die. Um, let's try to make this as big as we can. And there were a few people that I talked to who were like, oh no, that's too much, or it's that's budget's too high, or well, we're never gonna get this, or you guys won't ever do that, whatever. But I remember you were just like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. Let's go for it. And
Well,
that was music to my ears, man. I was like, finally, yes.
yeah. Well, I would like to echo, like, it is good to work along with someone who's as passionate as I am about a project. That's really encouraging. And it's really nice to do that. And yeah, you're right. I just felt that the film deserved to be something more than a micro budget. And there's absolutely a place for micro budget films. And I think you should start somewhere like that and then cut your teeth, make some mistakes, learn a lot, and then move on. But what I didn't want to do was do that small iterative steps, because I think that you can end up getting identified as a sort of a micro budget movie maker. And it's very hard to step from that to the next level. So I was keen to step up and frankly just do the work necessary to bring it to fruition, which I hope Locker 42 will, and it's looking, I can say it's looking likely, which is great. And yeah, that was the intention, really, is let's just make this the best film that we can, and from a micro budget, it would be a great film, but let's make it a great, really, really good film.
Yeah. And it's amazing because like this will be the biggest project that I will have produced on. I mean, in terms of amount of time that I've put into it and the amount of energy that I've put into it. But I have learned so much about producing from you, and, just through conversations and learning how the process works and researching and yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I mean, obviously acting is still my number one, but yeah, it's been cool to be able to, and that's one thing I will say, thank you for being as gracious as you have been, because I'm not as knowledgeable as, as you are with, in terms of producing, but I'm willing to put in the work. And yeah, and it's just been a blast, man. So I'm really excited for this project, and I'm really hoping that everything falls into place the way it should, and the way that we're hoping it will. Obviously there'll be bumps in the road, but that's how every project is. But yeah, and we'll definitely have to get you out here for production, most definitely.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I looked into coming over recently, but I mean, I got a big family here, and going over there, having to quarantine, coming back, having to quarantine again, it's just too much downtime. And I got a lot of projects on the go at the moment. I mean, I guess I could work in the hotels when I'm quarantining, but it's a lot of downtime that I can't really afford to be inactive for. Yeah. So yeah, as soon as it's easier, I'm over there. And
nice, man. Yeah. Have you ever thought about, because I know a lot of the projects that you work on are US based, correct?
They're all US based now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about making the move here?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah.
And we're not, because we haven't gone and looked specifically, we haven't made a decision, a concrete one, but we're certainly very open to it. But also, we like the idea of the south of France, or Portugal. So, and whilst a lot of my work is US based, the way that modern tech works now, I mean, to be working on as many projects as I am now, remotely, having never even been there, is amazing.
Yeah.
And to be genuinely moving these projects forwards is incredible. Now, when I'm over there, I'll be working. So family doesn't really matter. Is it kind of immaterial? Because say we live in Northern California, but I'm shooting something in Georgia or Michigan, then it doesn't really matter where in the world the family are, because I'm not going to be immediately where the family are, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're thinking about. We do like the idea of Northern California from what we've heard, from what we've seen from a distance, but we need to go there and feel it out, scope it out. And, yeah.
I'll tell you what, man, a lot of people are leaving California. There's like a massive rush to leave California. And everybody's going to Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's going to Texas because Texas is like its own country. I mean, it's really, they have their own rules there. And, you know, also talk about a place feeling safe. They have the highest rate of, or not highest rate. They have the highest concentration of special forces members. They live in Texas. so
well, that's one thing. Although, how often do civilians need special forces? Like, you know, I'm not often in a place thinking, God damn, I need more special forces guys around me right now.
Oh man. I
don't know if that sells it to me more or not.
Oh, geez. Well, yeah. I guess it's all on the mindset, you know. It all depends on how you look at it, really. That's funny, man. I could really use some more special forces guys around right now.
I mean, I'll be the foreigner, right? So I don't know if that works in my favor.
Well, and that is one thing I will say is with Texas, you know, one thing that I've come to find, I've never been there, but from conversations that I've heard from, you know, many different Texans, is it's one of those things where it's like, if you live there, no matter where you're from, you're a Texan, you know, and everybody looks out for each other. And I always think that's cool. But yeah, man, I mean, I think it'd be great if at some point you'd be able to, you know, hop the pond and come on over. But, you know, I mean, if you know, again, like you said, with modern technology, you can be anywhere. And
you
still make it work.
Everybody's working remotely now, but you know, before long, we want to going to start working face to face. You know, the idea that everyone's going to work from home is it's not going to work. I got a mate of mine. He helped build IBM Watson. He was on that team, and really cool guy, goodwill. And he was working in Slovakia remotely, and so was everybody. And the reason he stopped working with IBM is they were closing down this remote working and bringing everybody back into the office. This was pre-COVID, because they realized that it's cheaper and it means you can hire someone from wherever they are in the world, and it has all those sort of benefits. But the disadvantage is you don't have the same level of teamwork remotely that you do when you're working together, and ideas flourish when you're just having those ad hoc conversations, you know, when you're grabbing a cup of coffee, or, you know, you're just hanging out at someone's desk because you're just trying to clear your head for a minute, and then an idea will come up. And those conversations don't happen when you're waiting to have a Zoom call and you've got you've got an agenda for that call. And that's it. And otherwise you're not really communicating as naturally or as sort of freely. And they were also finding that people get complacent. So when you're working at home, initially people are more productive. I think there's a bit of a novelty from working from home, but after a while, people do become more complacent and their output reduces. So IBM pre-COVID just realized, because they looked at the stats, this doesn't work. And there was a kind of conversation about this going around the tech world. I know this because of working from Oxford Risk. This was sort of the realm that we were in. So I think that what we'll see is a lot of people will try to continue to work remotely, and that will, to an extent, stay. But also you'll see people moving back to working together face to face. I mean, we're people, we're social creatures.
Yeah, we're tribal by nature.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. But yeah, so I do hope to be over stateside as soon as I can, and to be working directly with you guys face to face. I'm really looking forward to that. And one thing that attracts us to the US is I'm the kind of guy, I just like to get a task, get a job done, right? And you see an opportunity, you want to go for it, you want to do it. And that's kind of the way that I live. And here in the UK, there's a lot of legislation. You want to do anything, there's paperwork. And I feel like it's gone almost too far, to the point where it becomes prohibitive. You know, like in the US, let's say, right, brewing mead. Now, I don't want to, you know, I'm no interest in starting an alcohol company. I'm just doing this for the fun of it. But if the microbreweries is a thing, where you got, dude, you got so many licenses you got to get here, and it's just like it's got to become like a big operation before it's even worthwhile. And you try and start any small business, and just the amount of red tape you got to get through, I find that super frustrating. And there's the Americans generally have this, just try it, man. And if it fails, dude, you tried.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you say, well, I tried something 3 times. And they're like, awesome, because you learned 3 times. And I love that attitude. Whereas in the UK, depending on where you are, but you can try and fail and be like, see, you shouldn't have done it. You know, and I don't agree with. I rally against that. So, you know, I love my countrymen. But
I'd like to think, you know, with as crazy as society seems to be now, you know, I still like to think that there's some remnants of the classic American spirit of, you know, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and, you know, you may fall flat on your face, but you keep getting up and you keep moving forward. And you know, like,
dude, I still believe that's all there, right? That never went away.
No.
Well, I think what's happening now, right, is news. Like, social media has been talked about enough, right? Everybody knows that point, right? I don't need to remake that. But there was a really cool point. Maybe Bill Burr made it. It's not my point; it's his. But it was so good. He was saying, like, the news channels, they're treating the news and politics like sports. Right. And when you've got like the Patriots versus, I don't know, the Broncos, is that 2 talk teams? I think. I don't know. I think I've heard that. Okay, cool. Now you could build up a rivalry between them, and you can get really angry about this, and they said that, and you get really angry about it, right? And that's entertaining, and you vent about it, but ultimately it's just a game, right? And it doesn't really matter. But like news now, not just in the US, it happens here in the UK too. Like, they treat politics like sports, and you're either red or you're blue, and you're against each other. And these guys are waving their flags, and they go over here, and they shouldn't be doing that. And then these guys, you know, and there's a conflict that's happening, and it's tearing communities apart here as well as the US. I'm not saying this is an outsider, but it's the same thing's happening here. And this polarization of politics is it's being shouted loudly through the media. And it's being echoed on social media. But then when you talk to normal, real people, right? Yeah. That's not the reality. No. It's headlines for views, right? That's what's going on. And so I do think that, like you said, the bootstrap, I think it's still there. Yeah. And yeah, I try to not listen too much to what's going on in the media, because it's a circus right now.
Well, and that's the thing too, is, to me, you know, it's like, when did, because to me, I would like to think that the majority of people really want to work together. The majority of people care about one another, or care about the other person that's next to them or across from them. It's those small percentages of people that are either you think my way or you should die. Or what? When did they become so loud?
When they were given a platform, right? As our social media. Before, right, somebody like that would start speaking like that in the bar, and then somebody like, John, shut up, and punch him in the mouth, and that would be right.
Shut up, you're drunk.
Yeah, exactly, right. But now, no, they get together in groups, and they organize themselves, and they turn up, and they're all shouting, and they're like, "What the fuck are you here?" We don't know, because we're angry, and
we don't know, we're angry. Well, but that's the thing, man, and I feel like the news has latched on to those small percentages, because I mean, you talk to. I mean, I feel like 80% of people genuinely want to be like, okay, well, how can we work together and make things better for everybody?
Yeah.
What is some, let's try to meet in the middle here. And that's what I think we need more of, but nobody, the media doesn't portray that. To me, the media is big on, instilling fear and instilling, things to cause a ruckus and cause problems.
And ultimately there's problems, right? They're suffered by the public.
Yeah.
Because you take
exactly.
the left and the right to its furthest extent, and it pretty much ends up in the same place, right? Which is where you have a regime at the top,
Yeah.
and the people underneath are getting abused,
Yeah.
badly. And you go too far one way or the other, that's going to happen. We've seen it.
Yeah.
Fascism, and then you've got like communism.
Yeah.
Both of which have been proven not to work.
Yeah.
Millions have died proving it doesn't work. Somewhere in the middle, where people work together,
yeah,
that's better for everyone.
Yeah. And what's tough is, I think when you have when money is the main driver for everything, that's when it starts to get a little tough. Like that was one thing. One of my issues that I had during all of this with COVID was nobody was pushing eating healthy and exercising because there's no money in that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And there were many instances and studies shown that like that helps, taking care of your body, taking care of yourself. So that way, if you do get the virus, your body can chew it up and spit it out,
Yeah. Yeah.
But nobody was talking about that. And that was one thing that I really just tried to focus on was eat healthy, exercise as much as I could. And I've, obviously there are people that aren't able to do, exercise as much or whatever, but there are still things that you can do, and it's just, it's been a shame of how, what do they say? Like fear can kill somebody just as easily as, I don't know what the comparison is, but yeah, I mean, people who are deathly afraid, that can take you out just as easily. And, so yeah, I don't know. That was a big old tangent, and I don't know where I was going with that, but ultimately, yeah, it is interesting how things end up. But so I guess to kind of go along with that, to kind of segue into that, with everything going on and everything, and especially being in this business where it can be very difficult in getting yeses. There's a lot of rejection and deals fall apart and all that stuff. How do you keep a positive mindset?
I was lucky.
Drinking your mead, or?
Well, yeah. Actually, dude, I don't drink anywhere near as much as I used to. Man, did I drink when I was younger. Like there was one point when I was genuinely spending more time in a bar than I was at my own home. And that was, there was a local pub, and there were not many places like it, but they trusted us. And at one point I spent 48 hours at the bar. They let us sleep on the benches.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
yeah, dude, I was a very different guy. Yeah, very much like a biker. I rode at the HA for a couple of times, and just a rock and roller rebel, and then met Kat, and I was still all into that, and then just, I don't know, having a family just chilled me out, sat me down. So yeah, I don't do too much of the drinking now. But sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. When I started publishing, I worked for a guy called Ed Pereira at Pear Publishing, and I had to do phone sales. That was part of my role. And he says, you don't work for the yeses, you work for the nos. And I had 300 calls a day. And he said, you don't get up from your day, you don't finish your day until you've had those 300 nos. Because, and the reason for that is it just becomes part of the cycle. You're like, okay, that's another one. That's part of the process, and then the yeses start, and you get better and better, and closing deals, but it stops the no's from becoming this emotional thing that grinds you down, which it can, and which it does. I mean, when you're trying to set up a deal and it falls apart, it's a bummer, but Okay, that's cool. Moving through the process. And you take the rough with the smooth. My old man taught me as well, like anything worth having costs.
Yeah.
And it's either going to cost you money or it's going to cost you work. If it's free, there's no value in it. And so if something doesn't work out, well, okay, that's just part of the process. But, and who was it? I forget who said it, but it was it was a producer on another podcast that I listened to, The Producer's Guide. I love it. And I forget who said it, but he was like, just tell your 17-year-old self, if you had a bad day, just imagine telling your 17-year-old self what you were doing that day. I was like, I had a bad day. What happened? Well, I was setting up this deal for this movie. You work in movies? Yeah. So, but we had this investor. You were talking to an investor, and it's like, you got to remind yourself, like, this is what we're doing. It's cool. We're not shoveling shit. I've done plenty of that, and it's not that. So I guess that's what that makes you positive,
Yeah, man. That's a great way to look at it. And then it, like you said, it helps you learn how to just shake it off and all right, on to the next. That's great, man. Well, hey, before I wrap every show, I do a segment called The Goods. And I just want to ask you a few questions, pick your brain, and get some of your answers. Number one, what is your favorite film of all time?
It's, at the moment, I'm debating this in my mind because for a long time it was Blade Runner. But now I can't decide between Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049.
Really?
Yeah, really, because I thought that was the best sequel to a movie ever. I mean, dude, just Roger Deakins' work. I could just sit there and just look at stills of his scenes, and for 2 hours I'd be happy. Like and it was so honest and authentic to the original material, and it expanded upon it, but didn't take it in a different creative direction. It built upon it and moved the story along in such a fantastic way. And Villeneuve is an awesome director. Hats off to Ridley for saying, what, I'm gonna give the reins to this guy. And I think he did a phenomenal job. And Ryan Gosling was amazing in it, as was Harrison Ford. Yeah, I love that film. So I think that maybe that one's edging. But the original Blade Runner, man, it's just so good. So
yeah,
it was so influential. It changed sci-fi.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got to be. Can I say two? Can I consider those one? So
sure. That's fine. That's fine. It's a cop-out answer, but sure, that's fine. Okay, next, what is your go-to drink of choice?
Me, I guess me. I like Birra Moretti. So that's a beer. It was Jack for a long time, but I don't drink so much of the spirits now. I just like a couple of beers. Birra Moretti is kind of my jam.
Okay. All right. Here, what are some common misconceptions people have about the British?
I'm going to touch on something now that you were laughing about the other day, and I think you're hoping I'll bring this up. So,
okay.
A lot of people think that the British can be sort of stiff upper lip and uptight, but I think that we've got a sense of humor is seen to be mean, but it's not mean. I think it's just honest. And because you asked me the other day, like, can I swear on this podcast? Is that a thing? I mean, how censored are we right now?
No, yeah, you can. Go ahead.
Cool. So like, let's touch on the word, right?
Whoa. Hold on.
Right, here we go.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Because you were saying the other day, like, the British just seem to have an affinity for it, and
you do. It is super taboo here, man.
Yeah, right. And it's like we will call each other that we will call each other because look, we got no illusions, right? We know what we did, all right. Globally, we know we're If someone calls you, you're like, yeah. History tells us so.
Okay, all right.
So yeah,
That is shockingly honest. Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, you know.
That's funny.
So yeah, I think that the British are more, and we're self-deprecating, but because we know we were the bad guys, you know. And like, here's the thing: so many cultures are like have an issue with the way that a culture is portrayed, and when the British are portrayed as the bad guys, which they almost always are, we're like, yeah, that's about right.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, with the evil villains. Yeah. So,
oh man. Okay. So okay. Now to kind of flip that, what are some things that you that might be common thought of Americans that I might be able to say, well, let's wait here.
You hear that America's a fat country, but I gotta be honest with you, nearly all Americans are like, man, just take care of themselves. So like, unless, I don't know, those people who are overweight can't make it over here. Like, I don't, then yeah, so I'd say that's a bit of a misconception, because that's not been my experience.
Well, okay, it depends on what parts of the country you go to.
Right.
There are definitely people who don't take care of themselves and don't really care to take care of themselves. You know, so at least they come by it honestly. But yeah, no, I think, because I think we are statistically, I think we're the most overweight country in the world, I believe.
Right.
But also too, it's all the processed stuff that's in our foods. You know, I mean, I think that's why there's such a big push now for organic, you know, eating clean, eating simply, you know, it's because, man, the processed stuff just kills you.
The advertisers won, right? I mean,
yeah.
it used to be that you would cook a meal from scratch.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. That's how you had your food. But the advertising won and convenience won. But it comes at a cost. And here's a thought that I had the other day, where everything has a cost. And like there's a labor cost, but also it goes beyond that. So it's not just money and labor, but then everything comes off the earth ultimately.
Yeah.
So what you've done is you've removed the cost from your person, from yourself, in terms of like, you don't have to go out, buy the food, plow the land, you know, grow the crops, then, you know, process it all that yourself, right? We've removed that process from ourselves. So your labor now is done for money, and then you pay for something, and now you pay for convenience. But the true cost of that is our health, but also like the huge damage that we're doing to the environment. You know, use of pesticides, when we got a soil catastrophe on the way, where soil is going to become infertile.
Yeah,
because it's been overworked. And so yeah, convenience food is a real problem. And you're right, getting back to eating healthy, eating what should be normally. Yeah. Right.
What's interesting to me is, and I don't know if you guys have them over there, but Nutri-Grain bars.
Yeah.
So I love seeing the commercials where they're like, they're made with whole grains, but they're garbage for you. And I eat them. I'll be honest. I eat them. They're really good, but they're terrible for you. Right. And there was a guy that I saw on Instagram who he's a big health guy, and he was comparing the same exact product from here and over in the UK and the ingredient list. And
you guys go for it with your ingredients. Like,
I mean, we put everything under the sun in everything. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I saw that. Like, your pizza dough, like the pizza base, like the list of stuff, and like it was crazy. And like, you don't even know what half that is.
Yeah.
And like in the UK, it's like it's flour, water, and salt.
Yeah.
And
and here it's, you know, stuff that I can't even pronounce, you know, just because they can put it in there. Yeah, I don't know. It's ridiculous. But okay, so my final question to you, sir, is what are some methods that you've adopted or what are some things in your life that help you stay centered and stay grounded in what you do?
I think family is a big thing. I think that there's a danger for a lot of people, and you see it where their work becomes their life, and stepping away from that and just spending some time with the family, turning your screens off. I think that's a good one. Exercise too, because sometimes you get so up in your head, you just got to burn some energy, burn some adrenaline off.
Yeah.
So that really helps. And having a partner that doesn't take me too seriously, that helps. Kat's great because she just meets me where I'm at, but we'll take the piss out of each other. And just having someone who's down to earth is brilliant, because it just helps you be real, I think.
Yeah. Well, good, man. Well, hey, thank you very much for coming on here, and I look forward to continuing pushing forward with Locker 42, and I also look forward to the day, where we can actually meet and we can actually shake hands and say it's good to finally see you, in person. So, yeah, man, I wish you all the best, and you're welcome here anytime. And thanks again for coming, man.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure, and it is a pleasure working with you. I'm very excited about Locker 42, and about the team we're putting together. I think it's really good. I feel very lucky to be part of this team, and likewise, man. I'm looking forward to just doing it face to face.
All right, and that wraps up this episode of The Good Life. Thank you to Gillan for showing up and being here with me. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and we'll see you next week. Take care.